How has the response been, and how do you think eventually this has worked out? Did you feel compromised in your artistic expression? Because some people, they might be purists and they're like, I just want to do music from within. I don't want to serve any purpose. But at the same time, obviously it emotionally connected with you and you wanted to do that. So reflecting now that the music is out, how does that feel?
It feels great. It feels great that it's there. What I hope is that everybody feels that it is for them. I wasn't serving any particular constituency when I wrote it. It's not for this person or that person. It speaks to everyone, I hope. The idea of the activist is an interesting one, depending on how you define that word, I guess. I think I tend to view all artists as activists because you have something to say and you're looking to change the narratives to some degree. You want to share it with people, but you hope to affect change through your art. That's why you're putting it out there.
What did you want to change?
One thing I have always been conscious of is when someone sees you, what do they actually see? I've always been conscious that even as a youngster, really dating back, I'm an ambassador. I've got to do my very best, not only for myself, but for my family and for everything that people think that I am. I want to be seen, and I don't want it to be through somebody's a sort of lazy assumption. The way that some people are afforded the grace to actually be examined, judged to a certain degree by virtue of what they do, their deeds, their accomplishments. I think not everybody is given that degree of latitude. And I think it's a human right for everyone to be seen for who they are and what they do. So it's not that I want to be seen for being black or saying, I just want to be seen
for everything
that I am. And I think that's a human right for everybody to have that. And it just so happens that over the years, black people haven't been afforded that right.
How do you feel since the George Floyd situation, the discourse and the conversations, also the music industry have changed? So has it changed for the better? Has it changed for the worse? Because now people are hyper aware, which maybe does it have to be a topic all the time? How do you feel about how this conversation is different now?
I think there is certainly a hyper awareness. There's an awkwardness that I sense. When I was growing up, we had the skinheads back home. I never really saw it, but I knew it was there, right? But it was kind of, you knew who these guys were. Now you don't.
They're better at hiding.
They're better at hiding, and there's clever. So at least you knew where you were with those guys.
Yes.
Okay. But anyway, I think now there are many people struggling to grapple with how do they respond in this moment to all of this talk of equality and equity. Where do they go? What do they do? What can they say? In some ways, this is a good thing, and in other ways, I think it's quite regressive in one way because there is so much awkwardness. And I think what it's led to is this discourse, certainly amongst young black people that I've seen, to come together to create a kind of strength and unity, but which is in some ways limiting on their own individual voices, but because they've come together as a homogenous force to say, this is us. I'm a black architect, I'm a black this, I'm a black this, and this kind of, I want to reframe, I'm a classical pianist. No, you're a black classical pianist. Well, why? Well, because classical music is white. So it's like by prefixing everything that they say with the black, there's an assumption that actually the default position is that particular discipline is white owned. And the conversations going on about, I was somewhere the other day and I met this lady who I saw on TV. I won't say where I was, and we had this lovely conversation. It was very warm. We had a little hug and I said, "Oh, so lovely to see you." And then I met somebody afterwards and they said, "Oh, did you meet such and such?" I said, "Yes." Lovely conversation. I said, "That person asked me the other day, can they call me black? Can they say Alexis is black?" And I said, "Really? They don't know whether they can say I'm a black person?" And I just thought, wow.
What were the alternatives?
It's not, but they just didn't know. And this is hand on heart. This is not, there's no menace attached.
Yeah.
There's no, literally, this is coming from
They just genuinely were confused and didn't want to offend.
What can be said in 2022? And it's like we've gone back to 1970. I was like, oh my goodness me. I gave a talk about this area recently at Cambridge University back in the UK. to this incredible group of young people as the Caribbean and African Society. It was just such an uplifting occasions to see all of these wonderful, bright young faces in an audience dressed up, enjoying each other's company.
Yes.
And then 5 minutes before I went up, said, Alexis, it's now time for your speech. So it turned into say a few words. So I thought, okay, you give me the microphone.
Yes.
And you've got 15 minutes. Okay,
Yes.
what am I going to talk about? I really didn't know what I was going to talk about until the guy introduced me. And now we have Alexis Ffrench, blah, 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 the black classical pianist. Then I thought, great, now I've got my speech. And actually, I just had to deconstruct in that moment. Really, really amazing black classical pianist.
Okay.
I just want to say, you know what? You have the potential to be a world-leading pianist. Full stop. Do you know what? Going back, I wouldn't have spoken about even these things.
Yes.
Because actually, but it's become so fever-pitched now that it's troubling. It really is troubling.
So then what do you make of a term or of a concept like Music Month, Black History Month,
well, it's
Black entertainment television?
Even in that, it's in a way compartmentalizing.
Yeah.
How can you take Black history and say, well, now, guys, you've got a month in which to celebrate your history. This should be celebrated all year long.
All throughout, every day.
All throughout. I mean, the mere notion that it can just be, compressed into a period of time, and that's when everyone gets to talk about it. For me, that's not progressive. Young kids sitting in the classrooms, not learning solely about slavery, but actually learning about the kings and the queens and all the people who contributed to classical society. I'm not talking about classical music, I mean as a wider whole, architecture and mathematics and philosophy and all of these things. That's the conversation should be happening. That's the battle that needs to be won.
Yes, it would be nice if these things didn't have to be called Black, but then if you want to address certain issues, like the Black male experience, for example, or being looked at a certain way, and you also have children, I mean, it will be something that, I mean, is there also not a necessity to sometimes you have to label it because you will maybe make a different experience than your white counterparts? Or do you, how do you go on about it? Or do you try not to even speak on it so you don't even put that idea in your children's heads that they think they will be treated differently?
I did what my dad did with me.
So he did have the talk with you.
My dad did it by example. It was just the way he held himself. Going to church, seeing him walk down the aisle slowly, I mean painfully slowly, upright, upstanding. And it always used to make me feel embarrassed, not because he was my dad, but just I used to think, why are you walking so slowly? And then it's only looking back I realized you're doing that because you're showing that you have pride in yourself. You're doing that to radiate and project the image of a strong, upstanding Black man in a sea of white faces.
It was a white church.
So everything that he did was an example to me. For my mum, it was about saying these things like, you need to be better in this. And I told my children similar things. They kind of make fun of me for saying that kind of stuff. It's important to know. But then it's important to pivot. So I got that from my dad. So everything that I do this, and I'm Black. That for me is where real power comes from, and that's the power that each and every one of them have.
So it's actually about being visible without naming it.
I celebrate everything that I am through my music, but I hope that it speaks to everybody.